There was something unquantifiably striking about Zoink Games' indie project Fee. Even the still images give an air of mystery about the game's natural landscape covered in purple tint. The creatures that inhabit Fee's rich world manage to be both familiar and alien, strange yet natural, and perhaps the most important element, the perplexing nature of Fee, digs deeper past the surface level music and visuals, into the roots of gameplay design and storytelling. The result is a game that won't be everyone's cup of tea, but takes risks that mostly pay off to create something serene. Despite Fee's stylistic pretension, the game is ultimately a mascot platformer. Taking on the titular fox like Fee, you aren't briefed on anything substantive about the game. Fee begins with a cold open that avoids giving you any real hint on what is happening or how to interact with the world. I found my first few steps in the world were more slow-paced and explorative because of this. I stopped to take in the surroundings, soak up the world, and see where in-game context would lead me. In the distance, I noticed a deer-like creature scurrying along his way. He dashed into the woods, and I followed suit, eventually leading me to the first waypoints. Fee is filled to the brim with these moments. The game is lined with subtle prodding by the developers to create direction without having to use a waypoint or tutorial. That's not to say that those waypoints don't exist. For instance, you have the option to open a map with objectives marked or summon birds that showcase the path to your next goal. However, Fee is at its best when you don't have to use those methods. A sharp eye and patient observation will create a more meaningful and organic gameplay experience. And that speaks to the smart world design and scenario building that Zoink clearly aimed for with this game. Stripped of the purple tint and mystique and atmosphere, the bare-bones gameplay of Fee is standard 3D mascot platformer. Fee can climb up trees like Mario in Super Mario 64, glide like Kazooie in Banjo-Tooie, and incrementally unlock abilities that allow progression through the map. Without the other complementing design choices of the game, Fee might otherwise feel pedestrian, similar to Yooka-Laylee, a game that narrowly tries to capture the memories of a genre's past glory. Thankfully, the atmosphere of the game and other world design elements elevate Fee to something better. Learning each new ability feels meaningful and like an integral plot point, not just a collection of new abilities. Gliding, despite being a staple in many platforming titles, feels almost magical in the game the first time you do it, and that is because Zoink does such a poignant job at creating an environment and mood that allows for that. Beyond the framework of a mascot platformer, the game revolves around a series of situational puzzle solving using the newly acquired abilities and singing. With the machine-like monsters taking over the forest you inhabit, many woodland creatures are being enslaved in force fields. A lot of Fee's journeys revolve around freeing the elder versions of each animal, learning its language, and then using that language to communicate with other similar creatures, opening up new areas in the map. For instance, after rescuing the 4 kidnapped bird eggs for the elder bird, you learn bird speak that lets you hitch rides with birds or open up bomb plants to destroy force fields. On top of that, you have the standard collectibles. Fee collects pink crystals hidden throughout the game, enough of which unlock a new ability. Or you collect eye-like crystals left behind from the silent ones that give some introspection into their story. Provided I knew where to look for the collectibles, it was typically enjoyable to solve the quick puzzles to get them, but collecting them never felt like a driving force of progression so much as merely exploring did. In that same vein, Zoink Games took risks with Fee, reaching outside their standard MO, and while I'm not convinced that their experiments always pay off, the growth of the studio into something new and challenging is admirable. But where don't the experiments pay off? Compared to previous 2D platformers Zoink Games has created, Fee's controls are sometimes prone to failing. There were more than a few times where I found jumping from tree to tree too imprecise to the point of frustration. On top of that, the game will only cater to those willing to unravel the mysteries of the world and bask in its glow. There are many people out there who just don't have the mindset to start titles entirely without direction or purpose and discover meaning through gameplay. On top of that, other more direct gamers can likely run through the main points of Fee in 3 hours or less. I easily spent double that poking and prodding the world to explore environments, but, as mentioned, I'm one of those gamers that enjoy more open-ended stories and exploration. The bottom line is a lot of what Fee does is going to appeal to a niche crowd, indie lovers, world explorers, and those who can find joy in creating their own stories. Be wary of that and reflect on the game before going in. Following that up, the game is based in mystique. As you uncover more about the world, I'm not of the mind that the game pays off initial mysterious tones, and the story will end up largely confusing most people. This isn't to say that Fee is boring, but it's difficult coming to a satisfying conclusion when everything is based in whispers and flashbacks. As a small sub-point, Fee could certainly use a bit more polish technically. While the Xbox One X version of the game was very stable, likely having some abbreviated slowdown every 10 minutes or so, frame skips on the Nintendo Switch version felt nearly constant when undocked. It feels like errors that could be patched out over time, but at the moment, I would grab Fee on whatever your most powerful console is, just to be safe. And though I've lauded the visuals of the game, equally impressive to Fee is the sound design and soundtrack. Playing into the concepts of minimalism that shaped the game design, the sound and soundtrack are what you would imagine a Twilight stroll in the primarily muted sounds outside of the forest animals, and a beautiful piano and cello combination to fill the silence. My only complaint? The music isn't readily available on Spotify. Zoink Games' Fee may be occasionally rough around the edges and gameplay derivative, but failure to look beyond that is missing the forest for the trees. The exquisite audio direction and art style help build on a world to create mystique across the board. Even better, a hands-off approach to gameplay allows those willing to invest the time an avenue to organically explore and fix the broken world left behind. For the full written review, check out DualShockers.com.